WhatsApp number. Better still, join us on YouTube. We're streaming live, and you would find it more interesting as well. Send messages through that platform. But if you're having difficulties locating us, just type Smooth FM Lagos in the search and subscribe. Rotus?
All right. Now, Afolabi Gbenro, of course, equity sales trader at Stanbic IBTC. Onome is a lead analyst with a financial advocacy website. Afolabi, let me start with you. I want to look at the market over the past quarter. October is next door. We're about to, in fact, celebrating Nigeria at 61 tomorrow. But how would you describe, as far as the capital markets stocks are concerned, what kind of view would you put the last quarter in? How would you review the last quarter, Afolabi?
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me, Rotus. Let me just do a quick summary of the quarter. So the all-share index in July gained 1.69%. In August, it gained about 1.74%. Today is the last trading day for September. So far for September, it's up 0.95%. The quarter was pretty quiet. We saw sort of like the same theme that we saw in the previous quarters, which is most sessions were practically dominated by block transactions, and outside of these, it was pretty quiet. On the foreign investor side, most of them were on the sidelines. We saw them actively participating in just a couple of stocks. I'll just name a couple. So Stanbic IBTC, GTCO, Nigerian Breweries, Nestle, Seplat, and Airtel. Most of the local investors were actually the ones that dominated activities. Now, there's a report that is released by the NGX, the Nigerian Exchange Limited, that basically summarizes participation between foreign and local investors. So for the month of July, local investors actually accounted for about 82%. 82% of trades, yes. And for the month of July, about 71.64% of the trades. Now, what we typically used to see was that foreign investors used to sort of command about 60% of the trading volumes in a particular day. So this is actually like a complete shift in the dimensions of the way the market works out. Most of the trading sessions were also dominated by sort of like speculative activities. We had a number of, especially local investors, taking positions ahead of expected half-year earnings. Usually the half-year earnings have corporate actions attached to them, and that's usually a catalyst for the market. But unfortunately, we only saw sort of reactions in a couple of names. I think Access Bank is one of names. It was pretty much flat or almost negative. So yeah, I mean, just remembering the single sort of biggest clip of a transaction was done in First Bank. There was a cross of about 474 million shares at 7.50 kobo. That was worth about 3.5 billion naira. So that's pretty much a wrap up of the quarter. Thanks, Rotus.
Thank you, Afolabi. So, Onome, how would you describe the quarter that we've seen now from what Afolabi has described?
I think it's been a pretty rather boring one. And I probably would remain so till we have, foreign investors come back in, because for the local investors, they probably will play, select stocks, right? And it's mostly a dividends kind of play. So once you strip out that play, there's pretty not much happening there. So it's been a pretty boring quarter, but I'm sure by tradition, last quarter of the year tends to be a bit more upbeat. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
So like a portfolio rebalancing for the final quarter. Onome, thank you. Afolabi, any stocks that stood out over the past quarter?
Yeah, I mean, so for let's look at it per sector. So in the banking sector, the likes of GTCO, Zenith Bank, Access Bank, First Bank, they led the charge. In the consumer space, the likes of Nigerian Breweries and Nestle were the ones that were sort of like the most active in that sector. In the oil and gas sector, Seplat Energy stood out. And in the telcos, the likes of MTN and Airtel stood out. Again, most of these names were sort of driven by block transactions. So that's it.
Onome, have you liked any particular stocks over the last quarter?
I think for me, the companies operating in the agri space, the oil palm space, Okomu and Presco. Also keeping an eye on Vitafoam. It's a small, fairly liquid stock. But I think this year the stock has done a run, and that's still standing solid. In the last quarter, I think it's probably close to a decade high or a year high at this rate. So that's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on.
All right. Afolabi, so I mean, based on what we've seen, what is there a word to describe investor sentiment? Because it looks like as far as foreign investors, it's exits, but maybe for locals, how would you describe investor sentiment over the last quarter, Afolabi?
You're muted.
I'd say there's a general feeling of like apathy. Apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So there's a general feeling of sort of like apathy, just a general lack of interest. Most investors have sort of been focused on other asset classes, not so much the equity markets. The sentiment is sort of still kind of quiet. There's really not been any major catalyst so far to sort of turn things around for the equity markets.
Onome, you already used the word boring to describe things. How would you describe investor sentiment, Onome?
Yeah, it's, as I said, boring, right? We just need that, I would say, spark from the foreign investor. So even if you notice a trend that you would have seen in the last 2-3 months is that for some of the blue chip firms that have significant foreign shareholding, they basically are rolling back their dividends to buy, additional shares. So that just tells you that, you still have that FX liquidity issue. So as long as you have that, people are going to sit on the sidelines. And I suspect, as with the way things are going, that we're probably going to be seeing interest rates inching up a bit. If you look at the last TB auction, I think the 1 year went from 7.2 to 7.5. So if we're going to have that, if that continues progressively, you're going to have more focus on fixed income than equities. And I suspect that will accelerate both globally and maybe domestically from next year. So I don't see much to spark the market except to have foreign investors playing a much more active role than they're doing now.
All right. Thanks, Solomon. Afolabi, so what do you make of that? How, looking ahead to, I guess, the final quarter of 2021, how do you see things playing out, Afolabi?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't necessarily see a deviation from what we've been seeing so far. We need a spark, like Onome said. We need that catalyst to come into the market. But I mean, looking at it with sort of like rising crude oil prices and then the efforts to sort of boost FX reserves and stuff, we're hoping that will probably, help things a bit and improve activities. But generally, I think the market is probably going to be quiet. And I mean, there's a typical trend that we see towards the end of the year. We start to see, especially local investors, start taking positions ahead of full year earnings. Yes, exactly. It's a dividend play. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to see anything different from that this year.
So thanks for that, Afolabi. Onome, so is it mostly FX liquidity that's keeping foreign investors out at this point?
Oh, definitely, because I see no reason why. If you're looking at the play globally, right, interest rates are low across the world. So we saw equity markets do extremely well last year in Nigeria and across the world. So that's the main thing. But remember that from next year, we're gradually going to be approaching, I would say, pre-election season. So during that period, people also tend to be quite hesitant investing in the country. So once you cross maybe Q2 next year, then everyone is going to be sitting on the sidelines. But if we had better FX liquidity, I mean, some of these stocks are still trading quite cheaply, and I don't see a reason why they wouldn't want to invest.
Thanks for that. Afolabi, how do you see the FX situation with the backlog and how that's impacting foreign investors?
Yeah, so just like Onome said, I think a couple of the foreign investors we've spoken to have sort of mentioned that FX issues is one of the reasons why they're not really doing much. So obviously an improvement in that space would be a potential catalyst for the market.
Great stuff. Any okay, thanks, Afolabi. Any to look out for, I guess, closing out the year?
It's the usual play. Tier 1 banks, maybe first league, if I may use that word, first league tier 1 banks. Look at the telco space, the palm oil firms, if I can use that expression. Those are the typical places that one will watch out. And maybe if we have, I think Seplat has run quite heavily already, but if we have oil inching up again, then it's to their advantage. So beyond those, I'm not quite sure what's interesting to look at. So it's the usual suspects, so to speak. Top tier 1 banks, oil and gas firms, and agri firms, the top tier agri firms.
All right. Yeah, oil did briefly touch $80 a barrel the other day. Came down though. Afolabi, how are you seeing things? So stocks to look out for looking forward.
I mean, so we in the banking sector, I think we like GTCO, we like Zenith Bank. Our research has a target price of GTCO of 43 naira. That's a potential upside of about 54% from where it currently is. For Zenith Bank, we have a target price of about 32 naira. That's a potential upside of about 36 naira. I mean, other names just to quickly go through, we like UBA, we like Okomo, we like Presco, and we like Dangote Cement as well.
Great stuff. All right, so only got a couple minutes left. I have to touch on this bit of news since I noticed that we're all men here. What do you guys make? What do you guys make of this paternity day leave? Is it 14 days paternity leave for public servants in Nigeria? What's yeah, there it is. Federal government has approved 14 days paternity leave for public servants. I think you're the only dad here, right? What do you make of it?
I would have to be honest. When I saw this, I was like, why didn't this happen before I became a dad?
Exactly. You're taking advantage of it.
Exactly.
Interesting. Well,
so I guess
question. Yeah, we had a question.
Yeah, go ahead,
on WhatsApp. Richard sent in this one. He said, I just need a clarification on the new NMPC based on the announcement that they've been incorporated as a limited company. Is that going forward, will they be able to share proceeds of crude oil sales monthly or declare profits after the end of the year? Just wondering if the latter is the case. How will the state survive? As Richie's question.
As a corporate entity, they're just pretty much going to hopefully be following by the rules of profitability and corporate governance. That's how I see it. I want them to list on the exchange, but here I won't happen until maybe 2025. I don't know how you guys see the NNPC. I think it was the Corporate Affairs Commission that made the announcement yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just procedural stuff from here. That's how I see it.
I think that, once, eventually, maybe the next administration, but once we're able to, I would say, lessen this foil subsidy thing, then the NNPC is going to have a bit more money that, states and the FG can share. So I think that's the big elephant in the room. The 2025 listing, I think that's a rather optimistic date. I'm not quite sure that they will be ready to list by then, right? Would like to see. So I think the first step really is and the current leadership in NNPC has done a fairly good job of having those backlog of results on time. So once we're able to have that, if they're able to do that for 3-4 years, then we can begin to think about listing, right? So once this foil subsidy thing is sorted one way or the other, there'll be a bit more money for states and the federal government to share.
Great stuff. Well, I guess we're out of time. Afolabi Gbenro, equity sales trader with Stanbic IBTC. Onome, thank you so much for joining us. Val, appreciate it,
gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Congrats to future dads on paternity.
Paternity leave, 14 days. Can we break it though? Can I just take first 7 days and then,
But it's public sector, us in the private, nothing for us in the private sector.
I mean, we should apply it, man. Minimum wage.